Hi everyone, and welcome to Financial Basics. Today I want to be talking about FIRE for couples, just aligning your goals, navigating financial disagreements, and optimizing your journey towards early retirement. So why is FIRE better together? It just having a life partner that is on the same page as you is by far, in my opinion, the single biggest edge in reaching your financial independence early in life. It is the biggest financial decision you are going to make in your life. Some people would argue, no, the house is the biggest purchase you're going to make, but by far the biggest decision you're going to make is choosing a partner and making sure that they're on the same page as you financially. Doubling your income is not half the time. It actually reduces the time by more than half, and the reason for that is just compound growth. If you are putting away twice as much, then you're giving that time to grow, and that just compounds that effect of having two people in alignment on their financial goals. The advantages here: it reduces your expenses, allows for the sharing of resources. It also allows for the sharing of time, brain power, collaborating together on chores, collaborating on investments, resources allocation. There's potentially tax advantages to being in a relationship, in a marriage, and then just mutual support as well. And just the overall perspective of the two brains is in fact better than one. And if you are willing to challenge each other and question each other on some of the decisions that you're making, it really gives you an edge in terms of some of your financial part and some of the financial decisions that you face in your life. I also just want to say that having a partner that is willing to be there and keep you in check, especially if you're making emotional decisions, super powerful. In fact, a lot of people in the financial space would argue that one of the biggest reasons for having a financial advisor is actually to keep you in check. So when the market crashes by 20% and you have that emotional reaction to take your money out of the market, potentially you can actually have a partner there that's going to calm you down. It's going to tell you everything's going to be okay. It's going to tell you the market will bounce back, keep you invested during that bounce back so that you can actually reap the rewards of that growth again on the other side of it. And having that as well just gives you an enormous advantage. So having a partner that is a little bit aware in terms of the finances and the decisions that are being made and what investments you're in can actually be as good as having a paid for financial advisor. So shared life goals. A financial plan cannot exist in a vacuum. You need to be able to have a clear image of actually what you want to achieve. So it's there as a financial enablement plan. It's not a standalone, I want $1 million or I want to earn this amount of money. Whatever it is, you actually need to really analyze what you really want. How much is that going to cost? Do a financial plan, build it around those goals, those dreams, and really spend some time thinking about that. More time with family, easier work, a better work-life balance, retiring early, traveling, whatever it is, you're building a financial enablement plan around those goals to reach that. And then just what sacrifices are you actually willing to make in your budget, wherever it is, so that you can reach those goals within your timelines. If you and your partner have different visions or different goals for the future, it can be difficult to just compromise and find a balance that works for both of you. If someone is focused on saving and investing and their partner is interested in really expensive cars or bigger houses, you're gonna have real challenges and real tension there. However, there are cases where couples could share similar values but also have different goals. So there's an intermediary there. For instance, if one person has the dream of semi-retirement or even early retirement, and the other person's absolutely happy in their career and isn't ready to just stop working, they want to continue to work, then just figuring out what that's going to look like. And as long as you're crystal clear on that, as long as you have a good understanding of what your vision is and you're willing to express that to the person you love and your partner, then that's absolutely fine. It works. So aligning on financial independence goals, there are 3 types of partners that I want to discuss briefly. The supportive partner. So they align on your goals. They're really supportive of what you're doing and these financial independence aims, but they're not really interested in the specifics. They're not interested in the details, right? So there's just a lack of engagement. There's over-reliance on you or the person that's more money focused. And that just leaves a lot of pressure for getting it right. So if you get it wrong, there's the risk that if something goes wrong, then you're to blame, and that in and of itself could create tension. So there's a big incentive there to really make sure that they're also learning, making sure that they're understanding those details. And they could also be missing out on opportunities to just improve their financial knowledge overall. So just that level of awareness gives you an enormous financial edge. The other thing that I want to say is, whether you're any of these partners, whether you're any of these types of partners, what you need to be aware of is that if there is any disalignment, if there's any situation where the one person is more knowledgeable than the other, so even if you are the supportive partner that's disinterested, it's an incentive for you to get interested, because, and this is a little bit dark, but if something happens to them where they become incapacitated, or there's a break in the relationship for some other reason and you decide to split up, then you want to have a good understanding of the money just as much as your partner. So any sort of disconnect, you're going to be going through a lot of things. And on top of that, you're going to have to deal with the finances, and you don't necessarily want to go through that learning curve without any support, without any partner in that with you, and trying to figure this all out at the same time. Tips for balance with the supportive partner: keep them updated on progress, do mini check-ins, encourage small roles, encourage them to manage their savings, manage a budget, figure out how to pay down a credit card. Just start enabling them to try and encourage them to maybe learn a little bit about stocks or shares, just something to start that process. And then celebrate financial wins to just keep them motivated, even small wins. So you can just set goals, set little things that you can even work together on. And if you can achieve those, then celebrate them. And then regular engagements to discuss finance, the usual once a month financial date, whatever you want to call it, where you're going through your budgets, you're both sitting down, you're engaging, you're talking about your money. And just making sure that you're on the same page in terms of the decisions that are being made. And then also the other thing I want to emphasize, particularly for the supportive partner, they might be disinterested, but they're also going to be, if you are engaging with them in this way, they're going to be asking questions, right? So they're going to be usually from a point of ignorance, and they're coming into these conversations, and give them as much space as possible to ask even questions that are obvious to you, or even questions that they've asked before. Just give them that space, give them that room to ask stupid questions, and then answer them to the best of your ability. And then you're lifting them up to your level, making sure that you're both on the same page going forward. Type 2, the uninterested or even opposed partner, right? So if you've got financial independence goals or retirement early goals, or any sort of goal that involves finances, and you have a partner that's completely opposed to it, they're very much a live in the moment lifestyle. These are typical characteristic of this type of partner. Prioritize spending on travel, dining, material experiences. You're going to end up with a lot of stuff, and potentially even a lot of debt. There's no focus on saving or investing. And I mean, the long-term concern, I've had conversations where the long-term concern is they're not saving, they're not investing, we're already keeping our finances separate, and I'm worried I'm going to have to pay for them during retirement. What to look out for here. So if you want to just see those flags, conflicting priorities, their spending habits might completely be disjointed to their long-term FIRE goals, and that's going to cause major friction. Lack of buy-in, they don't see the value in FIRE. They could outright resist making the necessary sacrifices in terms of just cutting and limiting their spending. And then there can also be just a more gradual process where there's just a bit of financial drift, where their focus on immediate enjoyment could lead to things like overspending or even just derailing the progress in the long run. Tips for balancing here: have regular and open discussions about shared financial goals and what the compromises are going to be. Highlight how FIRE can support their lifestyle, such as funding travel, providing just those additional freedoms if you are following FIRE and you eventually get there. And then start with small budgeting things, small budgeting goals. You don't have to do this in one giant leap. You can actually do this in small steps. You can just ease them into that process and ease them into the point where they're on board with the financial goals of you, if you are the more finance oriented person, or just collectively what the partnership ultimately wants. If you still have different goals and you can't come to an agreement, but you want to stay with them for the long run, this is your person, this is your partner, you love this person, then lead by example, so you can start down that journey and pursue your own goals, and you can assist them and support them with the things that they're trying to do to the best of your ability. But as they see your success, they're going to be more and more interested in how are you doing it and what are you doing. And that just builds trust in terms of your capability to do the finances, where you're putting them in a position where they can actually learn from you and want to learn from you. And consider your own position. Be a little bit selfish here. Are your goals and aims too extreme potentially, where a little bit of retrospection might actually help, where you might need to step back, or making sure that you are on track for your own goals, pursuing your goals aggressively, even independent of a partner that might not be on the same page as you. And also, my advice would be just do the math. So just make sure that you aren't talking in emotions. You aren't talking in conversation where you haven't looked at the numbers. Because once you put pen to paper or Excel sheet or Google Doc, whatever it is that you use, once you're actually sitting down and doing the calculations for how much house you can afford, how much car you can afford, what clothes you can afford, what holidays you can afford. Once you've actually sat down and done those calculations, if you are agreeing on the numbers, it makes it so much easier to have a conversation about what you can and can't do. A lot of people go into conversations with almost an instinctive approach, where they're just talking about, I want a bigger house, or I want a nicer car, or I deserve a better car or a bigger house. And the question becomes, let's put the wants and desires and deserves down for just a minute. Let's look at the numbers, get a result. Actually, this is what we can afford. And if you want a bigger house, that's absolutely fine. But then where are you making the sacrifices? Where are we cutting? Okay, if you want a bigger house, maybe a smaller car, or the other way around. Or I want to pay cash for the car. Okay, but let's finance some of it, right? So figuring out what you can afford, looking at the actual numbers, then work backwards and go, okay, well, what goals can we achieve? What can we actually do? I would also say, consider separate finances as a last resort, as an absolute last resort. And the reason why I mentioned the compromises, because sometimes you don't fully understand the consequences of the decisions that you're making. And this is why doing the math is really important, looking at the numbers specifically. Here's an example of how much in time a couple is going to save between, so you've got your retirement year at the bottom. So it's going to be retiring around 55.3 years. And the first 2,500 that they save, it's going to bring that forward to 45 years. If they go to 5,000 in savings, it's going to bring that forward to somewhere around 42 years. So what I'm saying here is, for each 2,500 that they save, the impact that has on their retirement and when they think they can retire is smaller and smaller. So you're losing the amount of time for the same amount of money. And this is where compromise comes in, where if somebody says, I want to be able to save 60% of my salary, and somebody else comes in, well, I'm saving 30% and I'm comfortable with that, I want to live a certain lifestyle, then there's room for compromise, and you can actually calculate the impact of that compromise. And if you have the numbers and you're sitting there and you're staring at it, and you can go, am I willing to work an extra 3 years or extra 5 years, whatever the case is, if it means I get a better lifestyle now, and you'll find actually there isn't going to be much of a difference here between the extremes if you look at the time impact. Type 3, the leader and the financial driver. I am one of these people, 100%. I am focused on the money. I take the lead in financial conversations, the journey. I'm proactive about setting goals, managing the investments, tracking progress. I am neck deep in the spreadsheets. And if you're looking to figure out if you have a partner like this, it's over focus on money and the numbers, unequal decision making. So potentially there's an imbalance in terms of who's actually making decisions and what decisions are being made. There's a desire from that person sometimes to even control things. There's also a level of stress, specifically if you're not meeting milestones and you're not meeting your goals. There's a lack of flexibility. No, we have to have this by this date, is something that you'll probably hear. And then there could also be just ultimately a power imbalance, in the sense that leading the finances can almost unintentionally generate like a dynamic in the relationship that's just a little bit imbalanced. And how to keep this in check, stay actively involved in the discussions, in the goals, making sure that you're on the same page when you're making joint decisions. Emphasize the importance of balancing saving for the future and enjoying life today, making sure that there's budgets for fun money to allow almost guilt-free spending, where you really are doing what you want to do with that money, where you come back with a little bit of extra shopping and you're not challenged by your partner. And then also acknowledging the progress, acknowledging and celebrating with your partner those milestones together. And just encourage flexibility when plans need adjusting. So if your goal is to hit some target, whatever it is, if you want to clear a credit card or pay off a car, whatever your goal, if you've got a certain timeline, have some flexibility there. What if you hit that goal within 3 months of your original timeline? That's fine, as long as you have that flexibility, and encourage that. So instead of having a hard and fast goal, you can say to them, okay, well, between June and September next year, we're going to hit this goal, instead of saying June or exactly at the end of June, right? So adding a little bit of a flexibility, a little bit of a spread really helps. Navigating financial disagreements, focus on open communication, understanding each other's financial values and goals. Really spend some time thinking about what you want out of life. And in your dream world, if you had all the money in the world, what would you be doing with your time? And then just working together to create shared budgets, actively listening to each other's perspectives, finding compromises to reach common ground. And this is where I go back to really spending some time thinking about what you want, what your partner wants. And if you have disagreements and if you have clashes, what you want to be thinking about is what that person is valuing and why are they valuing it. I have seen a couple who are earning $300,000 a year together arguing over, and this is borderline on divorce level, arguing over a coffee a day. So you need to understand what that person actually wants, why they are enjoying it, what impact, if you do the math, what impact it has on your goals and your aims and your collective aims. And if it's a small impact, ask yourself, are you willing to die on this hill? Are you willing to actually fight for this, or you're just going to let it slide? Because many times letting things slide, if they are low impact, absolutely beneficial to the relationship. You don't have to fight every battle. And if you still challenge, you're still struggling, just consider professional help and treat money discussions as a key component in your relationship, and work together to find solutions and be willing to compromise. So regularly discuss your finances, your concerns, your goals with your partner. Make sure that you're comfortable, and make sure they're comfortable expressing their views, their opinions, their judgments, even without any harsh, this is your fault attitude. You really just want to be able to have an open and free discussion, even if it's bad stuff. The first conversation I had with my partner, not ideal when it came to money. But it's a open the door conversation, and then there's no judgment. You think you're going to be judged going into that conversation, but you need to remember that the person that you're speaking to also loves you and does care for you. And if that's a two-way street, this becomes a lot easier. Discuss your individual financial histories. Talk about your past experiences, your past traumas, your past whatever has occurred, right? So just your damage, if things have gone well, if you've been lucky, talk about your struggles growing up, talk about how your parents treated money, to gain insight into your own past as well as your partner's past, because those are the things that are going to shape the conversations that you have and are potentially having a major impact on the disagreements that you're having. Just active listening. Pay attention to what your partner is saying, validate their feelings, recognize their feelings, and then try to understand their perspective before responding. Think it through. Just be willing to compromise and negotiate, find middle ground if there are disagreements, especially if there are disagreements that are not going to have a large impact. And if there is a compromise where you've actually calculated what that impact is going to be. Also address underlying issues. So this goes back to just understanding the backgrounds. Recognize that financial conflicts can actually, the root cause of it can be something completely unrelated, can be emotional issues. Even power dynamics or past experiences can have an impact there. Set shared financial goals. Collaborate, define short-term, medium-term, long-term goals, really get an understanding of that, and sit down and just work out what those are, and then build plans around them, and then the money drives, that drives the money conversation. So saving for a down payment on a house or even retirement planning. And when you're creating a budget together, develop a detailed budget that outlines combined income, combined expenses, and just make sure that it's very transparent. I've seen couples in relationships where they don't even know how much their partner earns, and that's not a good place to be. And the reason for that, 99% of the time, is there's some emotional issue there, there's a lack of trust, what on either side potentially, where it creates that tension, where it makes it very difficult to have these types of conversations. So be willing to be transparent and accountable. So important points to remember: even if your spending habits differ, respect your partner's choices and priorities related to money. And if you have a problem with it, figure out if it's important, and then discuss. Focus on the issue at hand. Don't do personal attacks when discussing financial issues. Even if this person has made a bad mistake, even if this person is making decisions that you don't agree with, understanding where they're coming from and not making it personal is an enormous step in the right direction in terms of having those conversations. Schedule regular check-ins, do your financial dates, discuss your budget, look at your finances, and then be transparent about debt. It's one of the biggest things I see in couples where they are hiding debt, or they have a credit card that they don't tell their partner, even if they're clearing it every month. There's all kinds of situations where, or even like past student debt, where they've kept that secret. The other thing that I wanted to talk about was just maximizing the income. So from that perspective, it sometimes is beneficial for one person to focus on earning more, while the other potentially explores like opportunities to invest or upskill or get a degree, certifications, whatever the case may be, so they can actually in the long run build their income and grow their income. And what I wanted to say is the approach I follow is proportional, where you do proportional budgeting, where what's driving that is ultimately you are tying your income to the expenses. So you're splitting the expenses up in proportion to your income. And what that does for each partner is it encourages each partner to basically make their partner earn as much as possible, which is absolutely fantastic. So it makes me want my partner to earn more, because if they earn more, it means I have to spend less in absolute terms, in actual dollar value, on the combined expenses. And if you're doing proportional budgeting, I have a video on that as well, and I'll link that in the description below. But fundamentally, if you take a look at that, you can track your expenses, you can track your income, you can track your investments, you can track what portion of the house that you own. And really, once you've got that proportion, once you're distributing those funds every month or every budgetary period, it really, really drives that I want this person to succeed as much as possible approach to the relationship. Relying solely on one income stream can actually be risky. So you want to diversify. You want to make sure that you're looking at a second job, or you're looking at real estate or side hustles, or even upskilling. Whatever it is, these are things that you can do as a couple a lot easier than you could if you're on your own. And that's the key thing here. One partner could be working full-time, while the other partner is interested in the side business or side hustles. You could leverage tax advantages depending on where you are in the States, or if you're in the UK, there's also certain tax advantages to being married or being in a relationship. There's tax breaks for them if you're filing jointly. There's opportunities to invest in tax advantaged accounts. You can even consider splitting income in ways that reduce your tax liabilities. Couples that work together as well, from a tax planning perspective, can actually save money, and that money saved can be reinvested towards their financial goals. So when it comes to budgeting as a team, firstly, be upfront and be clear about how you're going to be doing it. If it's combined finances where everything is just lumped together, if it's partially combined, where potentially you have a third account and then you have your individual separate accounts, or even completely separate accounts. As I mentioned, from my perspective, I do proportional budgeting. What's theirs is theirs, what's mine is mine. And then we have these combined expenses that we split in proportion to our income. So we agree in advance on how we're going to handle our expenses. And you can also use budgeting apps if you're comfortable with that, to just stay on track. And what I want to emphasize here is proportional budgeting also allows you to take smaller steps. So you could, for example, if you're both living in the same place, you, instead of doing all expenses, if potentially your partner has a really expensive car that you might not want to pay for on a monthly basis, but you are still living together, you could decide, well, I'm going to split the rent in proportion to income. Not going to do anything else. And then maybe the following month, as you build that trust, you can go, okay, let's do the internet as well, and we're going to split that in proportion. So you can decide in advance what expenses you want to split in proportion and which ones you don't. So here's an example of proportional budgeting. So you can see they have 7,000 in expenses, and they've split that in proportion to their income, with partner one doing 2,000 of those expenses, partner two doing 5,000. But if you look at it from a proportion perspective, you look at it from an income perspective, partner one should have done 2,333, partner two should have paid 4,666. And then from there, you can see that partner one paid too little and partner two paid too much. So they did pay 2,000 that left their account, but they should have paid 2,300, right? So they're 300 over. And what you're doing at the end of the budgetary period, whether that's a month, every 2 weeks, whatever the case may be, it doesn't matter. Because of the way that you derive your expenses, you're just looking at the movement in your account balances with your income and the money going out. And you can see then you just do a once-off transfer to the partner that has been hurt. In other words, the partner that has paid more in expenses in proportion to their income than what they should have. And so you can track that really precisely, and you don't have to worry about who owes what, or I'll pay rent and you can cover the car payment or something, or the utilities, right? So you know exactly how you should be dividing it up. Here's an example of the investment side of it. If you had these two partners and they were investing on a monthly basis, even if these two partners were investing physically into the same account, you can see exactly who owns what portion. So you can see how that proportion also changes as they continue to add investments, or even as the actual value of the investments change, right? So you're looking at initially your ratios are 37.5% to 62.5%. And by the end of this, end of month 2, you're looking at 37.367% versus 62.633%. So as the value in that account changes and as they add amounts, you can actually track who owns what. Same with the house. You can convert your annual interest rate into a daily interest rate. You can have a graph here showing that. And every time a money goes into your mortgage, you can track exactly who paid that and how much. And then you can work out exactly the time value of that money at the moment that that contribution was made. And you can see how the percentages change there in column K and L. So yeah, partner one made an additional payment of 20,000, and that reflects moving their ratio from 57.14% to 66.65%. Partner two's ratio obviously going the other way because of their contributions and the time, the value of their contribution, going down from 42 to 33. I have another video showing these calculations in detail, and I'm linking that below as well. Things to do as a couple. Have an emergency fund that covers your combined expenses, even if you split that in proportion to your income. So each of you should have 6 months of emergency fund, or 3 to 6 months of emergency fund, depending on your circumstances. Work out a strategy for how you are looking at debt and be aligned on it and be open about it. And then don't invest in what you don't understand. And what I mean by that is make sure that you're both educated, make sure that you're educating each other. And this goes back to my point with regards to financial advisors. This is a large part of their job, is making sure that you're not going to take your money out of the market at the worst possible time. And it's also going to make sure that you're not putting all of your money in some weird crypto or something else that's like you don't fully understand it. And my perspective on this is, if you cannot make your partner, the person you love, understand what you're investing in, then you really need to do some self-reflection to decide, is this something that I should be putting my money in if I can't even explain it clearly to the person I love, the person that's willing to probably listen to me the most. And then also just making sure that you're aligned on risk tolerance and the timelines to retirement. So if there's a massive discrepancy between you and your partner retiring, that's probably something to discuss if they want to retire in 20 years and you want to retire in 3. So having a clear picture there is going to really help you. And rely on each other to sort of make sure that you're staying on the railways, staying on the road, and just keeping each other in check, in the sense that you don't want to be doing anything wild like putting your money in a mattress just because the parents raised them like that. So you want to make sure that overall you are on the same page. And then going back to the getting educated, if somebody is putting money under the mattress, yes, that's a bad thing, but also understand where they're coming from and why they're doing it, and then encourage them and support them and even help them to understand what investments you guys are making, what those investments have been doing over the last couple of years, demonstrating that putting it under the mattress isn't the best idea, and through practical examples, through actually going through it and doing it. If your partner doesn't understand it, you as a team shouldn't invest in it. That's my perspective. And then the other thing is investing in each other. So as I mentioned earlier, if you're doing proportional budgeting, investing in each other to up each other's incomes is an absolutely fantastic investment, just because you can actually sit back at the end of the day or a couple of years down the road and you can see, okay, the income for your partner has gone from A to B. And because of that move, the amount of expenses that I take on in the proportional budgeting has shifted from 60% of the expenses to 50% of the expenses. And I can work out that value and go, I am saving myself this much every single month. And that investment that I made, so I decided to take on a portion of the expenses for the education. Now it's actually reaping the rewards, and I know exactly what the value of those rewards are. Staying the course together, celebrate milestones as a team if you're clearing debt, specific net worth goals or targets. Have you hit Coast FI? That's a major benchmark to actually aim for and hit. Being able to do something without acquiring debt, potentially even for the first time, like buying a car, a bigger deposit on a house, buying your groceries, buying clothes, whatever the case may be. Buying these things without a credit card can actually be a financial goal, and it's a fantastic small goal to aim for as like a starting step as you move into this journey. And then also it's worth celebrating even things like the rate of accumulation in your net worth. So if your net worth has increased by 3,000 this month, or for the first time, then celebrate it, or even 5,000, whatever the number is. Have those goals and really celebrate. Go buy a bottle of champagne or something nice to really say, we actually did this. And this isn't because of something I did this month, it's because of the consistency and the investing that we've been doing for the last 3 years to get us to this point. And keep each other accountable, do progress checks, make sure that you are staying connected in terms of the goals, in terms of the vision, and just keep pursuing that. And then also adjust your goals as life evolves. If something changes in your life, be willing to adjust those goals, be flexible in terms of what you actually want, and potentially even there could be complete shifts. You want to retire as early as possible, and then you move jobs to a job that you love, and then all of a sudden you're like, actually, you know what, I want to stay in my career for the next 10, 15 years. I can really see value in it, and I'm enjoying it so much. I'm not worried about retirement anymore. I don't want to worry about that anymore. I actually just want to enjoy the job. So that's a complete goal change. So the question then becomes is, are you willing to adjust those goals? The other thing to note, if you're dealing with a specific personality, be aware of that the whole time in these discussions, and make sure that you're keeping those personalities, those traits in mind. One thing that just comes to mind as a saver, once you cross from building towards your retirement to even reaching your FIRE goal, post your FIRE goal, and it's a big thing that is often discussed, it's probably one of the main reasons why reaching FIRE, i.e. reaching retirement early, and actually following through doing that retirement early, a lot of people end up going back to work after a couple of years or whatever, like however many months or years later. And the reason for that is because they don't have a clear picture on what they actually wanted in that retirement. So they wanted to retire early, but then they didn't know what to do. So having a clear picture on that is also really important. And the challenge for them is, if you're a saver, switching to a spending lifestyle, switching to a lifestyle where you are drawing down on your investments and on your savings is really difficult. So just keep that in mind as well. Make sure you have a clear plan, make sure you have a clear vision on what that wants, what you want out of that, and start building towards that already. If you guys are on track to FIRE in a certain timeline, start figuring out when you can step the gas off and do the math on that to actually understand in detail. Again, I did a video on your net asset value, your net worth, really tracking your net worth and using the net worth calculations to determine when you are going to retire and what you should have to be on track. Knowing all of those values makes it easier to be able to step away from the saving mentality. The other video I did on how much you should be investing, how much you should be paying off your mortgage. The reason why I did that is because it answers that question, and it allows people to just step back potentially from the constant saving, constant maximizing net worth calculations to go, what is the actual time value of these investments or paying off the mortgage, whatever the case, whatever the decision that you're dealing with. So in summary, small steps are possible, depending on your partner, depending on where you're at in your relationship, and just depending on how reciprocal your partner is to these discussions. And as you begin your journey towards financial freedom, financial independence, keep in mind that the choices you make today are going to shape the future that you build together. It's really important to have these conversations, have a clear plan, so that you are shaping that future, you are guiding that path. Achieving your goals, both financial and personal, is not something that you just, okay, I'm going to set this out and then in 10 years I'm going to reach that goal. It's about the journey. It's about making continuous adjustments. And take time to educate yourselves, upskill that, go read, go learn, watch YouTube videos, do everything and anything that you can. Google is your friend, ChatGPT is your friend, whatever you want to use as a tool to just better understand what you should be doing with your investments, especially if you're a novice, especially if potentially your parents never spoke to you about this. Go out and just start Googling, what is an investment? What should I be investing in? There are so many things out there, and even if you come across some things that aren't 100%, dive deeper, get a better understanding, and eventually you're going to get to the point where you're actually adding value. And with some focus, with perseverance, and a little bit of financial wisdom, I absolutely believe that you can create the life that you envision, as long as you are on this path together. Happy investing. Please like or subscribe. If you don't want to miss out on more videos, please share this content with anybody that you think would appreciate it. And if you have any questions or requests, please email me at financialbasicsabc@gmail.com. Next video is going to be in January. Have a Merry Christmas and a festive holiday. Catch you next time. Thanks. Goodbye.